Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I am reviewing episode 5 of Shadowhunters Season 2. Now, I have gone back and forth a lot with this episode because I feel like there were like so many really great things, and there were a couple of things I really didn't like. But overall, I think the good outweighed the bad in this episode, and I think it's one of my favorite episodes of Shadowhunters so far. This episode ultimately felt like an episode. I had said a few weeks ago that I feel like every single episode of Shadowhunters is so individual and there's no connection. There was an actual connection between the plot of last week and this week, and I really loved that. I just think the overall production quality of this episode was so much higher compared to a lot of other episodes, and it just gives me a lot of hope for the next couple of weeks and the rest of the season. That's really it for the non-spoiler section. We're going to talk about the actual episode now, so bye non-spoiler people. Alright, so first thing, I'm really glad we have a moment where Alec is really grieving about Clary's mother. We all know that it wasn't really Alec who killed Jocelyn, it was a demon, but of course Alec being Alec, he's going to put that responsibility on himself, and he's going to feel really bad about it. So I'm glad we got a moment of him kind of coming to terms with those feelings. It's also a great moment between Alec and Jace. We have this conversation where Alec is like, I killed Clary's mother, your mother. And it was really wonderful to see their dynamic. Just like all the characters and the cast, they just do so well together, and I love it. The one thing I didn't like about that scene is that Alec jumps off the Institute, and I'm like, oh, that's Jace's power. I am realizing that that was introduced in the pilot of the first season. We have all of them jumping off buildings like no big deal, but it didn't really resonate to me until now that that is literally what Jace does. He jumps off the Institute in City of Ashes, and now it's like not special anymore. And it goes back to them including the demon blood experimentation way too early, because first Jace realizes he has powers, and then he's like, hey, maybe Valentine did something to me as well, and then he finds out that he has demon blood, and it's like, oh shit, that's why I can do all of this stuff. So they've kind of reversed it, and I don't really know if they're going to give Jace any special abilities now, or if he's just going to be another shadow hunter. I'm not really sure where they're going with it, but it definitely set me off a bit. We get another scene with Magnus where he's opening up about his mother's suicide and how his mother killed herself because she knew what Magnus was. Very powerful scene. There was a lot of emotion coming from Harry, and I love that we're getting glimpses into his past more, because we don't really delve into that in the books until the Bane Chronicles. My issue is I feel like it's glossed over too quickly. I feel like Magnus shares these little anecdotes about his life that we all really enjoy, but because they're only like 20 seconds long and it's not like they really come into play in the rest of the episode, it feels like we would easily forget about them. I think it's great that we're incorporating more of Magnus's history and it's actually being shown in the show. I just hope they can find a way to fix it so it doesn't feel so isolated from the rest of the events of the episode. We get a great scene between Clary and Jace, and I feel like they finally picked up on their chemistry. I guess it took for them to be separated and for Jace to be on Valentine's ship for them to really start to reconnect, but I love with what they're doing with their relationship now. I feel like Alberto gets the best lines in the show, but Kat is a close second to me. I feel like while Simon gets all of the really funny lines, Clary gets the hard-hitting ones that really make sense to her character. Jace comes in and asks Clary how she's doing, and she delivers this line that's like, I would be so much better if people would stop talking in quiet voices and telling me it's okay to grieve. I just really loved their dynamic in this episode. Like, we get a little bit more of a glimpse into how Jace feels about the fact that his mother is dead. Jace has this line that's like, I wanted to get to know her, to let her know that I wasn't just an experiment gone wrong. Jace in the show is also much more forgiving than book Jace. In City of Ashes, Jace is very resentful of Jocelyn. He's like, she was my mother and she abandoned me. So I thought that was a nice change from the books. We have a great Malick scene. The way Alec views Magnus and Camille's past relationship and actually lets Magnus talk about it rather than being very defensive was really nice to see. The thing about Malick is, while I didn't necessarily agree with the progression of their relationship in season 1, I feel like where they are now is absolutely perfect. It feels very natural and authentic. There's no real tension. They're just two people who are enjoying their company. It's very easy for them to talk to each other. If this makes sense, I feel like Alec and Magnus, where they are in the show right now, is where Alec and Magnus are in like Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and Lady Midnight. Like, that's how their relationship feels. It feels like two people who genuinely care about each other and don't have all of this internal drama going on. So I really like that change. I have some mixed feelings about the scene when Clary is in the morgue and I believe she's cutting off Jocelyn's hair so that she can bring it to Iris to bring her back to life. I loved this scene because it really represented how Clary would react in this situation. We have a moment where Clary is being reckless and she knows that she shouldn't bring her mother back, but it's what she wants to do and what she feels she has to do, so she's doing it. Very classic Clary Frey. But on the other hand, we have Jace, and I feel like Jace was just too calm. It just goes back to all of my thoughts of the writers do so well with the emotional scenes with Jace, and they capture his vulnerability so freaking well, well. Everything else is just lacking for me. I felt like Jay should have responded way more angrily to Clary trying to raise the fucking dead. I feel like he wasn't so hard against it. He was just like, you know that's wrong, you can't do that, it's illegal, you might not get back what you asked for. Like, I felt like there just should have been something more that showed he was really against this decision, and it just wasn't there. So while I have those little problems that don't really amount to all the good that I felt was in this episode, one of the big things that bothered me about this episode was how we handled Simon's vampirism. Simon is back home at this point, and Becky walks in, his sister comes in, and she finds blood in his room. She finds blood in her brother's room, and all she can really say is, I'm flushing your blood down the toilet, stop acting weird. It just didn't add up in my opinion. It was just so dismissive, and I didn't like it. When Simon comes out to Becky and is like, I'm a vampire, but I'm still Simon, that was one of the most heartwarming Simon scenes I have ever read, and they had the potential to do that here, and it just wasn't what it should have been. I'll talk more about that later, but on a lighter note, one thing I really enjoyed was the Jason Izzy fighting scene. I've just recently noticed this about Shadowhunters in season 2, but I love how they use training scenes as a way to propel conversation. It's authentic to the Shadow world because truly they don't train a lot in the books, they're mostly fighting demons all the time. And secondly, I feel it is a much more exciting way to get all of that dialogue out while still being entertaining instead of them just like standing and talking in corridors. And they have some A+ lines, like they bring back the fact that Izzy can't cook, and it was just really funny. And the choreography and the music, it was just a really strong scene in my opinion. So, Elder Tree gives Izzy Yin Fen for her demon infection. I am still fucking shook. When Aldertree said it's called Yin Fen, I lost my shit while watching. This is such an interesting direction of plot, and I love it. Everyone has been theorizing about what is Aldertree's deal, because he's obviously got some shady intentions. There's some theories that he's actually Sebastian using the shape-shifting rune, which I think is a viable theory, but it could also be that he's implemented into the Institute by Valentine. I don't really know. I'm definitely praying it's not Sebastian, and I really hope he just happens to be one of Valentine's minions that Valentine did a really good job with fucking up the clave with. But it was absolutely insane. It makes me interested because I wonder how big of a role this is going to play, because if you read the Infernal Devices, you know how addictive Yin Fen is. It literally kills you with like every use, and there's no cure. So I really don't know where they're going with it at this point. I just hope it does play a prominent role because it's a big fucking deal. With all this being said, can we please stop assuming that I don't like things because they're not book content? Nobody ever talks about the fact that I loved the finale of season 1 even though it was completely different from the books, and here's another thing not in the books at all. Total drastic change, and I love it. I hate non-book content when it's bad. Stuff like this where they're taking a risk and they're making it interesting and there are a lot of repercussions from it, I love it. So Shadowhunters can continue to give me things like this that make me go absolutely wild that aren't in the books. I'll be so much happier. But let's just get it through everyone's head that they made a massive change to the books, and I absolutely loved it. I think it's one of the greatest things they've done on Shadowhunters so far. So let me switch back to Simon, and we have this reveal to his mother. I knew from the second the scene started that I wasn't going to like it. The first line from Simon's mother is, "Becky told me you were keeping blood in your room." That is the reaction when your parent finds your porn stash, not when they find cow's blood in your room. We do have some funny lines where his mother is like, "Are you joining a cult again?" And Simon's like, "For the last time, World of Warcraft isn't a cult." My absolute favorite line of the episode was when Simon's mom goes, "Do you sleep in a coffin?" And he's like, "No, it's a canoe." First, Simon's mom says she believes him and it's gonna be okay, and she totally accepts him, and I'm like, no. Her rejection of Simon was so crucial to his character, and it leads to so many of the future events for him, and I can't believe they did that. Luckily, later we're saved, and they kind of insinuate that Simon's mom doesn't actually believe him because she's calling a doctor. I guess it was meant to be a plot twist, but it didn't really hit me because I was just like, good, like that's the way it should be. So while I am glad that they are sticking with the books in this instance, and it's not going to be like she totally accepts him, I do feel that the reveal was way less powerful than it was in the books, and that was really disappointing. In the books, Simon's mom is praying him out of the house, praying that this monster who replaced her child goes away, and then Simon accidentally uses the Encanto on her, and she like forgets all about it. And then he comes home and there's all religious signs on the door, and it's like really significant that she hates what Simon has become, and it hurts you. This didn't make me feel anything, and I was really disappointed to see that. The second real problem I had about this episode was this whole plot of Iris making Clary a host for a warlock baby. I really don't even want to talk about it because I just feel like it was so stupid, and I don't understand how anyone, even if you're a huge fan of the show, could have enjoyed that. So we're just gonna leave it as It was really strange. Alec with the little warlock girl, oh my god, be still my heart. That was such a cute scene. But then when Izzy and Jace show up and Iris is escaping out of the portal, she says, you can save the redhead, but she still owes me a favor. Which makes it very clear to me that this is not the last we see of Iris. I don't really know how she's gonna come back into play. I don't know if it's gonna be for the same purpose of creating more warlocks. Is she gonna join Valentine's side? Who really knows, but I am confident that's not the last we have seen of her. We get the reveal of Clary's rune powers. It's so funny to me because I had originally imagined this episode from the trailer being that Clary uses the necromancy rune that she creates in the books to bring back Jocelyn, and Jocelyn is not the same. And while I'm so happy that it didn't actually go through this necromancy route that I was expecting, while I'm not totally convinced I really like what they did with the whole warlock baby thing, but I found it really, really interesting that this was the episode I was hoping they were going to show Clary's rune powers, and they did it just in a different way. She actually sees the rune in a vision, which is completely consistent with the book, so I really appreciated that. But she shoots sunlight out of her hand. Side note, did anyone get complete flashbacks to the City of Bones movie in that scene? Either way, I'm so happy with the way it was introduced and that they finally introduced it, and I can't wait to see what they do with Clary's rune powers in the show. On a related note, last week I had expressed the fact that I thought they were going to bring Jocelyn back to life in this episode, and I would have lost so much respect for the writers if they did that, but if she stayed dead, I would be completely content. As of now, Jocelyn is dead. They had a funeral, her like spirit lifted up to the sky or something, whatever it was, she's dead. And I'm satisfied. I'm glad the Shadowhunters writers stuck to their guns and they kept up with my expectations. I think for the entirety of Shadowhunters, I will be nervous that they're actually going to bring her back at some unexpected point. It just really feels like something the Shadowhunters writers will do, but I'm trying to have more faith in them because they did come through in this past episode. But nonetheless, I really admire the writers' consistency for now. Did I just say I liked Shadowhunters' consistency? We get to the last scene, which had me bawling. I was crying. Actual tears from my eyes. Shadowhunters has never given me that much emotion, and I was so happy with it. It's just one thing after the other. Like, Jace and Clary have this nice moment where Clary thinks she can't do it, and Jace holds her hand, and they walk up together, and he's really there for her. They're shouting the names of people who have died, and Clary can't even get through Jocelyn's full name before breaking down and crying for her mom. She crashes into Jace, and he holds her, and he says Jocelyn's name for her, and it was such an emotional scene. Oh my goodness, I loved it so, so much. I hope we have more scenes from Shadowhunters that can make me feel like this because it was absolutely beautiful. And I know I've been saying this lately that I feel like they have really, really great ending scenes, but this one was the best. I don't think they'll ever be able to top it because it was done so perfectly. That is really it for my episode 5 review of Shadowhunters. Please let me know in the comments of this video what you guys thought of the episode. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!